Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be taking a first look here at this Week 9 NFL DraftKings main slate, and like I always do with these videos, I'm going to go position by position, talking about each play that's sticking out to me here early on in the week, and then we'll wrap up the video by putting together a first look tournament lineup. With that being said, let's dive right into this. Now, for starters, we got 10 games here on this slate this week, and it's a very interesting slate, and maybe a better way to put it is it's kind of a gross slate overall. We only have one game here of the 10 that has an implied total above 45 points here as I record this on Tuesday. So I don't really love this slate in terms of a cash game perspective, but I actually quite like it from a tournament or GPP perspective, which is why we're going to be building one of those lineups here at the end of this video. It allows us to do some unique things with our lineups, to say the least, but I'm still going to go position by position here. Let's kick it off with the quarterbacks. Now, if you are going to be playing cash games here this week, I think you're going to have to consider Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. I prefer Lamar Jackson. I know he burned us last week in a great matchup on the road against the Cardinals, but once you see the rest of the quarterbacks here on this 10-game slate, it's going to make sense as to why he'll probably be in your player pool. I honestly don't mind that game between the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys. I think that will be one that we can target from a tournament perspective. That's a game that has an implied total of 46 points, the highest on the main slate. Dak played really well last week coming out of the bye, 4 touchdowns, over 300 passing yards, 32 DraftKings points. Didn't get a huge price bump up either, still $6,500 here. So I think we will be considering him in tournaments. Maybe CJ Stroud, scrolling down here a little bit. I don't mind Derek Carr on the tournament side of things. 3 straight weeks where he's gone above 300 passing yards. I'd like him to be throwing a few more touchdown passes here. He's only got 8 on the season through 8 weeks. Not necessarily good by any means, but definitely a good matchup at home against Chicago. And he has top 20 plus DraftKings points here in 3 straight games as well. So maybe we'll build a tournament lineup at the end of the video here surrounding him. Maybe run it back with Chicago, but initially speaking about that, I don't necessarily love it. Going down here a little bit more, maybe we can consider Minshew there at $5,200 for cash. Maybe we can go with Heineke if Ritter is out this week. He's a guy that plays with a lot of heart. He's got that rushing upside. 12 DraftKings points last week when he came into the game. Honestly, everyone, the quarterback position is just kind of gross this week, which is why I like it more so on the tournament side of things. Now, moving over here to the running back position, I'd say this is my favorite position so far during my initial look. There are some guys that I would be willing to spend up for. Right away here, Alvin Kamara has been involved in all aspects of the New Orleans Saints offense. Rushing volume has been really nice. He's heavily involved in the passing game. Now, he hasn't gone over 100 rushing or receiving yards so far this year, but he is finding the end zone as well. 3 touchdowns now through 5 games, so definitely willing to spend up for him, especially in a good matchup at home against Chicago. Saquon Barkley had 36 rushing attempts last week, 5 targets, 41 total opportunities. I highly doubt that number is going to sustain going forward, but with no Daniel Jones here right now, they're clearly leaning on Barkley, and I guess Daniel Jones could be back here this week. Haven't been keeping heavy tabs on him because I typically don't play him, but if Barkley's going to be getting 25 plus touches in that matchup against Vegas, he's definitely going to be on my radar as well. Josh Jacobs running it back in that game I think is interesting, more so from a tournament perspective. I don't think we can go there in cash considering the volume is kind of hit or miss each week, but $6,900, I definitely don't mind that price. And then Jonathan Taylor, look, I know Zach Moss continues to get touches in this offense, but this might be the best matchup that he sees all year against that Carolina defense. They have not been able to stop the run all season long, and we're probably going to get a 25 plus performance out of him sooner than later. This week would make sense considering the matchup. And then scrolling down here into the 5K range, really wasn't in love with anything there. Again, if we're playing cash this week, we might be able to consider Henderson here. Good matchup against Green Bay, another defense that has not been good against the run this year, but the volume was pretty much a 50-50 split last week between him and Royce Freeman, so I don't necessarily love that. And then Chuba Hubbard is getting work in this Carolina offense, but hasn't been super productive, so we're kind of looking at the price there at $5,000. But overall, if I'm looking at the running back position, I think it's going to make sense to spend up this week. Now folks, before we dive into the wide receiver plays here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. You guys have been awesome so far this year. Every like, comment, and sub here on this channel has truly gone a long way through the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't subbed yet, help us out by doing so today. We're trying to get GriffDogg Sports here to 4,000 subs. Now, diving into these wide receivers, and I certainly don't mind the wide receiver position here this week, but again, do like it more so on the tournament side of things like I've been preaching throughout. We have some nice elite options right away at the top here with Davante Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp, and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown has been so dominant this year. You can see there just in his last 5 games, he's gone above 30-plus DraftKings points in 3 of those games. I do like that Philadelphia is at home here this week, but obviously a tough matchup against that Dallas defense. I also like that Cooper Kupp's prices come down here $1,000 over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, we're going to want to keep an eye on whether or not Matthew Stafford plays here this week, but assuming that he does, I think we can definitely consider Kupp here in tournaments. Look, I know his last 2 games have not been great, but his first 2 of the season, 23 and 31 DraftKings points, we know the upside that we can get out of Cooper Kupp. Now, the projected ownerships are typically something I look at later on in the week. If he's going to be 5% or less, I'll definitely have him in my tournament pool. CeeDee Lamb, definitely don't mind that game again between the Cowboys and Philadelphia. Davante Adams and the Raiders, might consider them in tournaments, but that offense just does not look very good. Adam Thielen, we have to talk about this play here. We've been getting him at a discount really all year long, but now he's priced here in the mid 7K range. Maybe we can still go there. I think more of a tournament consideration at this point more than cash. But at the same time, I mean, look at this volume here. 11 plus targets in 4 of his last 5 games. Maybe we can go there in cash, even though he's got a significant price bump up. Now we're going to get into the 6K range here. Not in love with anything until we get to the lower 6K range. With Chris Olave and Amari Cooper, I certainly don't mind either one of those plays in tournaments this week. Olave, the volume has been there, especially over the last 3 games. I think we're going to get a 25 plus performance out of him sooner than later, and he could definitely do that in that matchup against Chicago. And then Amari Cooper here, just a really good matchup at home against the Arizona Cardinals. So another tournament consideration that stuck out to me here early on in the week. 5K range, I actually don't mind a few plays in here. DJ Moore, Nico Collins, Zay Flowers, and even Terry McLaurin there at $5,600 on the road against New England. I think those all could be tournament considerations. And then we're going to get into the 4K range here. I honestly don't mind the Green Bay wide receivers. You could go here with Romeo Doubs, or you could even go with Christian Watson, whose price is really nice at $4,900. Hasn't been great so far this year, but you can see the volume has been pretty consistent when he's been in the lineup. And he's a speedster, right? We're looking for that touchdown where he scores 60 yards, 75 yards, kind of gives you that 13, 14 plus DraftKings point play. Hasn't done that so far this year, but at $4,900, he'll definitely be on my radar this week. Michael Thomas there, I do prefer Chris Olave, but he's had consistent volume in this offense himself. You know, maybe he gets one of those games where he scores 2 touchdowns and really meets value, especially for tournaments. And then Rashid Shaheed here, I think we can consider him as well. More of a boom-bust type of player, but 27 DraftKings points last week. That's the type of upside that he has. You know, speaking of Christian Watson, that's the type of plays we're looking for, where you score a 70-yard touchdown at any point in the game. Below that, nothing really sticking out to me here early on in the week. I typically don't dive into the 3K range until later on in the week when I'm looking for some more value. And then we got the tight end position here this week. No Travis Kelce. Mark Andrews' price continues to go up. TJ Hawkinson in that Minnesota offense just taking a hit overall with no Kirk Cousins. I don't mind Dallas Goedert here in this matchup against Dallas. If there's one position that Dallas hasn't been great against, it has been the tight ends. It's a great defense, though, overall. Don't get me wrong. But Goedert here, I actually like the numbers he's had here in terms of the passing game as of late. Again, more of a tournament consideration. Don't want to sound like a broken record. And then running it back in that game with Jake Ferguson, same thing. The Eagles defense, more of a pass funnel defense that has not been great against tight ends. So maybe we'll get one of those guys, maybe both those guys in our tournament lineup here at the end of this video. Now scrolling down here into the 3K range, McBride finally got the price bump up here. 14 targets last week, scored a touchdown, almost 26 DraftKings points. Hopefully you took advantage of him in the 2K range. And then a few other tight tight ends that stuck out to me here in the 3K range, first being Cole Kmet, had 10 targets last week, 10 receptions, almost 18 DraftKings points, and it sounds like Justin Fields could be back here this week. And then right below him, David Njoku, great matchup here against the Arizona Cardinals, 8 targets last week, scored a touchdown, and almost put up 18 DraftKings points himself. If we're looking to save a little bit more money, maybe we could go with a Logan Thomas or a Musgrave, but overall, kind of like the upper 3K range or lower 4K range in terms of tight ends. And then wrapping up the positional plays here with a defense before we build that first look tournament lineup. Honestly, I'm not afraid to spend up for defenses in my tournament lineups. I think the Minnesota Vikings don't look bad here at $3,300. They played significantly better here as of late, probably coming around to that Brian Flores defensive scheme. Don't mind the matchup against Atlanta either, whether it be Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke starting at the quarterback position for them. But I also don't mind the Patriots here at home against the Commanders, who arguably have the worst offensive line in the NFL, and we all know that Sam Howell is not afraid to turn the ball over. So those are the defenses that are really sticking out to me here early on. All right, now let's put together a first look tournament lineup here. Again, it's Tuesday early on in the week, but I don't mind the New Orleans Saints here this week. Good matchup at home against the Chicago Bears. I've never really been a Derek Carr guy over the course of my career, whether that be with DFS or season-long fantasy, but I don't mind the way he's looked here over the last 3 games. Has some easy stacking options as well, and we're actually going to put in Alvin Kamara there, considering his role in the passing game. And then let's go with a Chris Olave here for starters. So $6,300. I'm not going to run it back with any Bears here to begin with. We're going to go back to the running back position. I do like the matchup here for Jonathan Taylor this week, and then I do think we could run it back there with an Adam Thielen. $4,000 left over per player, not necessarily a lot. Let's go to the tight end position here, and let's do a double stack in this game here with Dallas Goedert, and then we'll put in Ferguson as well. That gives us a little in price savings. Let's put a defense in at this time. We'll go with the Patriots. So we got $4,300 left over for a wide receiver. Again, initial look here, but don't necessarily love anything in this range. Let's go off of Olave here to Michael Thomas. $5,900 left over. Okay, so that gives us a run back there with DJ Moore in that Chicago-New Orleans Saints stack. So we're stacking up the Saints there with Derek Carr, Kamara, Michael Thomas, running it back with a DJ Moore, and then we're doing some mini stacks here. We got Jonathan Taylor and Adam Thielen in that game, and then we got 2 tight ends between Dallas Goedert, Jake Ferguson, and then just a one-off defense there with the New England Patriots. All right, everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great week here, folks. In the meantime, I'm out of here.